My 20th neighbor, 65 meters, is making me really uncomfortable. I apologize in advance for any mistakes or if this is the wrong sub. I'm fairly new to Reddit. Since I was 18, my next door neighbor here named John has seemed to take an interest in me. First, I assumed it was because he's lonely, he lives alone, no kids, etc. But now, it's gotten increasingly weirder. Every time I leave my house, John is there. Every time I get home/park my car, John is there. And, every single time, John makes a creepy comment/action that makes me uncomfortable, all while I'm alone. He never approaches me or talks to me when my family or friends are around. To list a few examples. John told me that, and I quote, if I felt like a bad girl, I could come over anytime. John blows kisses at me every time he sees me. John told me that if I ever wanted to get rid of my brother, 16 meters, to come over and borrow one of his guns, he has a locker full of them. John will give me a hug any chance he gets. Obviously with COVID that's not happening anymore, thankfully. My dad tells me that I'm worrying for nothing, John is harmless, just an old lonely man. But John gives me such a bad feeling. I feel so sick when I see him, like alarm bells going off. I just turned 20, so I'm feeling extra vulnerable and like I'm not brave enough to tell him to back off. Moving out isn't an option, I'm still in school, and I've tried nearly everything, ignoring, avoiding, etc. Does anyone have any advice? Please help a girl out. Even if someone has advice on how I can calmly and still politely assert my boundaries, I would really appreciate it. Too long didn't read. My old man neighbor is making me very uncomfortable and I don't feel brave enough to tell him off. It's time to start cranking up your response. Seriously, stop being polite. He isn't even remotely polite. You do not need to be a nice girl here. If he blows you kisses, say gross. That's creepy, while making an obviously disgusted face. If he asks if you want to get rid of your brother, say, so you're asking if I want to murder my brother? What the fuck? If he says anything inappropriate, respond with, John, don't be such a creep. Do not be nice to this guy. Don't ignore him, unless you are concerned about your safety. If he approaches you at all, yell no. Get away from me and back away. Oh, and ask your dad why he's okay with your neighbor talking about murdering your brother. What the hell is wrong with your father that he thinks any of this is okay? My dad tells me that I'm worrying for nothing, John is harmless, just an old lonely man. Does your dad know that John offered to loan you a gun for the purpose of killing your brother? John is not harmless. He is threatening. But it's okay if you don't feel brave enough to tell him off. I'm 10 years older than you and most of the time, I'm still not brave enough to tell off dirty old men. But it does get easier as you go. Practice with small actions so you don't have to go from polite straight to screaming at him to fuck off. Practice looking disgusted at him. Practice deliberately ignoring him. Something as simple as saying, yuck, in response to him will slowly build your confidence. Don't take that shit. He does it because you don't talk back. Tell him the fuck off. You don't have to be calm or polite. Be a bitch. Even if someone has advice on how I can calmly and still politely assert my boundaries, may I quote my favorite murder here? Fuck politeness. And nice? You take nice out back behind the chemical sheds and stab it in the face. Does this mean you have to scream at him? No. Continue to ignore and avoid. Do it long enough, and it becomes a lot less interesting to hassle you. Have headphones/earbuds on, or talk on your phone to convey that you are busy and disinterested. Don't even look at him. Learn to say no. Just no explanations or justifications. I'm sorry your dad sees nothing wrong with John sexually objectifying and generally creeping on you. It is a sadly common belief that women are supposed to be flattered that some rando wants to fuck them. In sum, stop worrying about John's feelings, he doesn't give a fuck about yours. Does he? Anytime you think, oh, I don't want to make a fuss, remember that he's undoubtedly fantasizing about coming on your face. Have problems being curt with him now? I had a costumer at a bar I worked at act very similar to this. Everyone said he was harmless and I was overreacting, but he would make inappropriate comments and touch me when I walked by. Do not let this man touch you. It starts with a hug, but it can easily escalate quickly. The more you allow, the farther he will go. It ended with him finding out where I live and walking by my house and writing "I love you" in the dirt in my car. Someone tried to break into my house when my husband was out of town, and I'm fairly certain it was him. After all that, I became very assertive and let him know exactly how inappropriate his actions were. After all of that, I ended up getting a different job and just avoiding him like the plague. Fortunately, he left me alone after I yelled at him when I was in the local bar one night and embarrassed him pretty bad. But it doesn't always work like that. If you are afraid for your safety, I would start documenting everything he does. Videotape him and keep written documentation of everything. And if it ever escalates more than a few words, you have enough evidence for a restraining order, which I highly recommend. Just because people think he's harmless doesn't mean he is, especially if your gut is telling you differently. My fiancé, 30, F, is driving me, 32, M, insane by asking me whether I'm asleep. There will be swear words. This has been a problem ever since we came together 6 years ago. Can't take it anymore. I asked her in every way I can think of to please stop fucking asking me whether I'm asleep when I'm lying still with my eyes closed. I asked nicely, I begged. I yelled at her. Nope. Still touching me and asking whether I'm asleep. My naps are holy to me. I need them to function. Sometimes I have a horrible night and need to squeeze in some sleep time during the day. Told her that. Just writing this drives me up the walls with rage. What fucking answer is she expecting? It's either no or no, because you just woke me up. Locking the door doesn't help either. She'll knock until she gets a response. I'm this close to taking revenge by not letting her sleep at night when she has to go to work in the morning. What should I do instead? Too long didn't read. Girl keeps waking me up from the sleep of the righteous. Ask her what the hell she's thinking and what she could possibly need at these moments. Consider honestly how to meet her reasonable needs. For example, if she feels she needs to know what is planned for dinner, that should be handled prior to naps. If she wants to make plans for her own day, then you need to be careful that you are not holding her hostage to your napping and give her plenty of freedom to get on with her day without you. Then discuss which of those needs are not acceptable reasons to wake you. Then tell her if she can't be more respectful of your naps, you have to reconsider your long-term capability. Because this is not okay. It will literally drive a person mad. Do not retaliate. That is shitty and it won't work. I got to think that there is some kind of irrational compulsion that causes her to act this way. She knows not to ask and she doesn't forget. Still, she goes so far as to bang on a locked bedroom door. It's not rational behavior. I would urge her to see a therapist because this isn't a rational act. Agreed. This reminds me eerily of the boots tying wife. I showed her this topic. Her reply was that I could have been awake and she wanted to know. I don't know what to say anymore. She wanted to know for what exactly? Is that the sole reason? Sounds like the light's on but nobody's home. In that case, I think the toddler approach is fine here. Ask why did she want to know. Even if she keeps repeating she just wanted to know, just keep saying why. Even if she gives a BS excuse, keep saying why. Asking why corners the reasoning by making the person spit out all nonsensical reasons, and you can get closer to why she's so unaccommodating. It just sounds like she's so preoccupied with wanting you to just be there. I bet your ass if you were quietly reading a book while she passed by you, nothing would happen. But as soon as you aren't awake and present, that's when she bothers you. Am I right? My ex would do this constantly. She'd even call me if she wasn't with me and knew I was most likely sleeping. I would tell her just text me. If I don't respond, then I'm asleep. And yet she'd call and wake me up. Finally, I just started taking time that we were supposed to spend together as time for me to catch up on my sleep. Then she had to make the choice to either be waking me constantly or sacrifice our quality time together, and she actually realized there was a consequence for waking me. I sleep horribly. If I fall asleep naturally, I need to stay asleep. Why are you engaged to someone who won't listen to your basic and very reasonable request? I 40am, a happily married man, have become obsessed with a woman after having my world turned upside down. Like the title says, I am a happily married man, but I recently went through a traumatic experience and have now become obsessed with another woman. Bear with me please as I relay the story. I need to change some of the details to preserve anonymity. My wife and I have been happily married for 20 years. We both love and support each with all our hearts. In all this time, I have never had desire to stray, or ever even had a crush on anyone else. Not even a hint. And I am pretty sure it's the same for her. We've built our lives together, and are so totally enmeshed with each other. A few months ago I was involved in what would be called a traumatic experience that turned my world upside down. I was in a small plane crash. The pilot and one passenger were killed on impact. The other passenger suffered severe injuries and I kept her alive until EMTs arrived using first aid I learned in Boy Scouts. I walked away with cuts and bruises. You might think I would suffer from some sort of PTSD, but it's been completely the opposite. Everything about my worldview is inside out and upside down. Since then, it's like I went from black and white to color television. I'm seeing things differently. Questioning everything. Questioning myself. Questioning bedrock foundations of what I thought was reality. I don't want to get too spacey, but let's just say it's like I've been reborn and am learning the world again. And, I hate admitting this because of the loss suffered by the families of the victims, but for me personally, it's all been overwhelmingly positive. I just have this overwhelmingly positive curiosity. See my relationships with people and things so differently. I just see so much love and positivity and connection everywhere. And I can't help but spread and share this love. It's difficult because of quarantine restrictions. I'm in the US. Because I don't get too much interaction with people. My wife has been incredibly supportive and understanding. She understands that I went through a changing experience, but she doesn't understand and probably can't understand how fundamentally my worldview has been shifted. And I was fine with that. I still love and adore her. Recently, it was suggested that I attend a survivors support group, so I found one in my area and joined for a Zoom call, all remote due to COVID. Here's where my current issue begins. There were around a dozen folks on the call and it was a typical, share your story kind of event. There was a woman on the call and I was instantly magnetically attracted to her. She was so stunning, to me, and so serene and so self-assured. We didn't interact any more than simple greetings, but I can't stop thinking about her. I go to sleep thinking of her. I wake up thinking of her. The best way I can describe it is, if you can remember being a teenager and find out someone has a crush on you. That's the kind of overwhelming elation I feel towards her. I hung on every word she said. I couldn't take my eyes off her. And to be clear, I don't think it's a sexual attraction. I just want to be in her presence, where we both can relate and connect on a level that I don't share with anyone else. I'm not going to cheat on my wife, but I'm worried if I can't get over this obsession that my relationship will degrade away. And I don't know how to get over this obsession. And that's not fair to my wife. I really don't know what to do. Too long didn't read. I survived a plane crash and have been reborn. Now I am obsessed with a woman from my support group that's not my wife and I need to figure out what to do with my life. Edit. Thank you all so much for offering to work me through this. To be clear, I'm not going to cheat on my wife nor even have an opportunity to. That much is certain. I just need to figure out why I'm so fixated on this woman I met in passing and how to get her out of my head.